I tell you, it's very concerning because what we do has become so hard and so expensive, right? From availability of materials to availability of people to do the work, qualified workers, the cost of that qualified worker, and then insurance coming in and saying, hey, by the way, we're going to raise your prices 300, 400%. So unfortunately, the only way that we have to sort of continue providing the services and providing the product that we built is by passing on those costs into our customers. But until when our customers be able to afford that is the question. Because a healthy environment is where you see costs increasing 3 to 5% a year, right? Hopefully values increase the same rate, right? 5 to 7% a year or so. But that's not what we've seen over the last 5-7 years.
Harvey Hernandez, welcome to Dash's podcast, Breaking Ground. So, actually, it's been a long time since I've actually seen you. I read all your stuff and updates and all the activity that's going on in your professional life, which is pretty damn exciting. I want to create full disclosure for my audience, all these over 5,000 agents hopefully listening today, who you are. We go back almost 15 plus years.
Yeah, I would say close to 20, yeah.
Yeah, man, it's probably close to 20, where through my marketing and branding agency, LGD Communication, we worked together maybe 20 years ago, which was always exciting and fun. So what I really wanted to jump into is just to give a little bit of background about you. I'll let you speak for yourself in a moment, but Harvey's company is Newgard, and it's been an active developer, residential developer for, I guess, 20 years now. Initially in Tri-County area, but now expanded and now into other states as well. Very, very active. These are almost household names, the projects that Newgard has developed over the last couple of decades. All of our agents are aware of Brickell House and Gale Residences, and recently in the last couple of years, the creator of the Natiivo brand, Lofty Brickell, and that's just a handful of current stuff. So I've teed it up for you, Harvey. So I just want to start at the beginning in terms of where you grew up, when you got to Miami, how you landed and have the passion for real estate that you do have.
Well, first of all, it's so great to see you. I have tremendous amount of admiration for you. I remember, our first project together and how cool it was working with you and your team.
It's always fun.
Always fun. So happy to be here. So happy to hear about the progress with Dash, which is exciting. When it comes to my story, I've been in Miami for 32 years. I arrived in 1992. I was 19 years old. I'm originally from Caracas, Venezuela, and at a very early age, I think I was 17 or maybe just turning 18, I decided that I wanted to try my luck somewhere else. I wanted to go to either the UK or the US and in search for new opportunity or for opportunities really. So the opportunity sort of came to perhaps come to Miami because Miami has always been the closest, right, place to South America, and a little bit of a place that is less of a culture shock when you're moving, and I remember I told my family that I was going to be away for 3 months and I would be right back. But deep inside, I knew that I wasn't going to come back. And that was it. I came to study and English And then I fell in love with the energy, like many of us throughout the years, immigrants, and whether it's from another country or another state. Um, and I found in Miami that it was quite interesting. It was back 1992. It was a city where everything was um,
To do that, you'll need to be online.
everything was, how can I say this? Everything was so raw and 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 natural and almost like uncensored. It's so interesting. And that was fascinating because it made you believe, made you feel um, that there was a huge amount of opportunity to massage things, to create things, to provide new experiences to people and so forth. So it's exciting times.
I know you did a few different things before you got to development, but what grabbed you about becoming a developer that obviously been so terribly passionate about it your entire adult career?
Yeah, you know, I think at the beginning was necessity, right? I did all sorts of work. I worked in the kitchen. That was my first job in the kitchen of a restaurant for a year and a half, which was very interesting job and a very hard work. I mean, it was 72 hours a week, and then I would study after that job every day. So it was very intense, um, but extremely rewarding. And then I started shortly after I left that job. I started a small computer purchasing business. So basically, I will act as a purchasing agent for companies back in Caracas, where, if you remember, the efficiencies of shipping internationally and all that stuff, they were not in place. So they almost needed someone to go and say, okay, go pick up these bots, this part from this place, and make sure that they give it to you. It looks like this. And guess what? I just wired these guys $10,000. So make sure that you pick it up and then take it immediately to this other place so they can wrap it and make sure it's very secure. They will ship it to them. So for that, they will pay you a commission. So that was interesting, sort of beginning stages for me to get familiarized with the whole computer part business. And then I started a company that basically specialized in buying refurbished inventory on the computer parts and also actual computers. At times in the mid 90s, if you remember, technology was changing almost like daily, right? Because there's huge revolution, and computers were becoming obsolete every 6 months, right? Because there was always the new one that would come out, and guess what? The new one was 10 times more powerful, right? So by definition, the old one that you just bought 6 months ago was obsolete. But then what it meant is that in other markets outside the US, the Caribbean and South America, that obsolete computer was first technology, right? It was like current. So I would buy all this product that was refurbished by the manufacturers at a deep discount, and then I will sell it in South America. It was incredible business. It was basically started with 800 square feet, and we grew it to about 45,000 square feet of warehousing in 5 years. And then I sold that business, Len, and I signed a non-compete, and I found myself out of the job, right? I couldn't do anything. That's what was doing for five and a half years. So I started sort of buying real estate and investing and buying and renovating and renting. And I really fell in love with a few things. I fell in love with the feeling of putting heads on beds. It was very beautiful, right? And heads on beds is almost like a B2B term that we use, but what it means is providing housing to people, right? Because if you think about the basic necessities of us humans is what? Food, shelter, right? And air. And right, exactly. So providing one of those necessities was beautiful. And then, I said, well, I need something a little bit more challenging than just buying a building, renovating, and then acting as a landlord. I wonder if I can build something. And that took it to another level.
What was the first?
Uh,
What was the first pure development project from ground up?
yeah, the first one was, still is called Gables View. Uh, it is in the Gables area. It is on Douglas Road, across from a Publix. Right, this is around 16 and Douglas Road. Beautiful building, 14 stories, about 83 units. I have to tell you that I didn't know anything about development. I had no idea as to the differences between block, concrete, drywall. I had no idea.
On the job training. Yeah.
And I surrounded myself with the very smart people, and I asked a lot of questions every single day, and and um, and I almost built it, and I designed it almost like if I was going to be the user, and that has turned out to be a great recipe.
Yeah, I know. I mean, your trajectory over the last, I don't know, I guess 10, 15 years has been rather remarkable. I mean, as you and I know, well, developers have come and they've gone. I mean, for a whole host of reasons, for legitimate ones and for in some cases illegitimate ones. But so let's just move a little bit forward now. You're very active. You're very, very pro development. You're in a handful of different markets down here and out of state. Um, how do you continue to see the how robust development is in Florida, specifically South Florida, given that many other destinations in the U.S. are suffering and housing is challenging. Talk a little bit about how you kind of see where we are today, and how we continue to be such a central focus on so much activity.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, right, from 1992, even when I started developing in 2000 to now, totally different state, right? Totally different South Florida. Imagine, and the state in general. I tell you, when it comes to South Florida, is remarkable what has happened in the last 5 years. Call it the COVID effect. Call it uh, uh, the trend that was accelerated by COVID. And and as you look at the world, and within the world, the pockets of growth within the world, is only a handful of cities, a handful of countries. And within this handful of countries, there are very specific areas of those countries that are thriving. Um, and you can argue that one of those areas is for sure Florida, the state of Florida. And I tell you, as you know, and as you mentioned earlier, we created this flexible ownership brand called Natiivo, which is phenomenal. We're super proud of. And as we look at the expansion of that brand to other markets, for sure we have to be in every market in Florida. So I've been traveling every week to a different market where we either looking to buy real estate or to bring the brand through a license with other developers or whatever, and I'm blown away.
Can you explain? Natiivo is really an interesting new residential model. So for all the agents out there, me as well, how do you begin to frame and how did you evolve and come up with this vision for Natiivo?
Yeah, so in 2011, if you remember, we launched Brickell House. Brickell House, everybody thought that we were mentally deranged, really, by trying to sell a product just coming out, not even coming out, during a financial downturn, and requesting 70% down payment and selling for double what the existing new inventory was selling. But we demonstrated that there was a need out there for a Miami, call it 2.0, 3.0, whatever that was at the time, and that was kind of what Brickell House became. So we carved out 2 floors in that building, and then after we completed the building, deliver all the units, we moved our offices to that building. And then, as is natural, I would come in every single day to my office through the main lobby, and I would see everyone with suitcases, not everyone, but a ton of people suitcases coming in and out in the mornings and also the afternoons. And I started wondering, I said, what's going on here, right? This is 2016 or so. So what's going on here? And what it turned out to be was that a ton of people were doing Airbnb. They were Airbnb-ing their units illegally, right? Because it wasn't allowed by the city rules, but it wasn't allowed either by the condominium rules. So here you had a owner of that condo that it was doing an illegal activity, subjected to fines and other issues and other penalties. And then here you had a guest that had to meet, in some corner to get a key and pretend to be a cousin of somebody, right? And lie basically, so they cannot get so they can just stay in somebody else's unit, and guess what? You cannot use the pool, you cannot use the gym, because if they find you, they kick you out. So and then I started thinking and I said, wow, this is unbelievable. And despite all these challenges, these people called Airbnb continue to grow this business almost at 50, 60, 70% year over year at that time. And if you remember, Airbnb wasn't as a household name as what it is today back in 2017. So you know what we did? We said, how about if we just embrace it, create product that gives the buyer and the user what they want, but let's design it for it. Let's design it accordingly. Let's build it with a license that allows the municipality to be happy with it because it's controlled, and we're collecting the taxes, and we're building it as with the fire codes and all the regulations that they need, and also provide an opportunity for the guests to come in and have an Airbnb or short-term rental a staying experience that is really close to what a great hotel will give you. And that was it. So we launched our first ones in Austin, Texas, here in Miami, 2 different markets, because we wanted to try it out on both locations and prove that this concept could basically work in other areas other than South Florida. And yeah, it has been incredible.
So for our audience who wants to know as much about Natiivo and the business model as possible, so are your buyers now and were in the first one in Miami and Austin possibly as well, more investor driven people, meaning they could use it when they're in residence, when they come to town for short periods of time, let's say, but it goes into some sort of a rental pool component where some on-site management company will be the gatekeeper of all of that. How does that work?
Yeah. So we, first of all, we purposely designed the building, build it, license it to be shared. Number one, every unit is 100% finished and furnished with everything you need, even the Nespresso machine in the counter, everything, small appliances, everything that you need.
Luxury hotel, yeah.
Like a big hotel, because they are full kitchens and everything else, right? So then you buy a flexible ownership residence where you can live there 6 months out of the year and monetize it the other 6 months using our technology and our management in place. That makes it super seamless to you, the owner, or use it whenever you want, a few weekends out of the year, or guess what? Never use it and keep it as an investment, and everything in between.
So once upon a time, many years ago, and I guess it still exists, Ritz-Carlton had done flexible ownerships, a little bit different, whereby, so actually I own one in the Highland in next to Aspen, and that particular business model then was where, because it was a ski destination and brilliant in the summer and actually all seasons now, fabulous, where you would buy a unit and you had access to it 4 weeks a year, yeah, and you then derived in those other balance of the year revenue from
The operation.
On-site management company would then lease it out, at pretty good numbers. So is that a little bit like what you're doing? That am I buying X number? Or it's all
It is similar, Len. It is similar, but the reason why we don't like that older model is because think about what you're saying. Yeah, it's flexible ownership so long that you use it only 4 weeks out of the year. And guess what? These 4 weeks out of the year, I guarantee you, are not the best weeks of the year.
Yes. Right. They rotate it. So like 1 year you can get Christmas, but then the next year you're going to be in March, right?
Okay, so by the way, you are a slave to them, right? You cannot, it's no true flexibility. And what we wanted to create is a product like almost like you and I would want to own everywhere. I want to go to Aspen really where I want to go. Really where I want to go, not when they tell me that I can go.
Okay, I get it.
And then,
are you going to do that? Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
And then the old model basically manage that unit for you, but then end up taking 40, 50, 60% of the revenue as a management fee. Guess what? We eliminated all that. We said, you know what? Pay us 20 to 25%. It's more than fair. Allows us for us to run a business and provide the experience that we need for you and the guest, and also allows you to make some money in the process.
So in the day, and I guess even today, you can't talk to buyers or prospects about returns. Is that correct?
Correct.
You cannot.
That is correct, because at the end of the day, if we do that, then we're selling something else, and we're not selling real estate.
Security, yeah. You have to do a Series 7. It's a whole thing for agents, whole different world. I remember very, very well.
Correct.
It became. So, not to spend too much more time on this, but I find the model really, really interesting, because as we here in Florida continue to want to drive an underserved market, which is ownership, homes and residences. There's so few resales on the market now for a whole host of reasons, and lots of agents. And we canvass most of the brokerage firms on a regular basis. Where if I said to you 3 or 4 years ago that most of the agents in the bigger firms, whether that was Element or Compass or Fortune or Cervera, blah blah blah, maybe 35 to 40% of their group sold new construction because they were really focused on resales. Now, it's an education process for sure. And Dash does that, by the way, as well, to help agents understand that it's a different sale. It's a different business selling new development. And there needs to be an educational, there needs to be, kind of an evolution of thinking. But now I'm hearing closer to 60 to 65% of the agents, in terms of having to make a living because the resales are so limited, are now turning to new development.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what happens as well, not to interrupt you. It, what happens is if you're a buyer and you say, you know what, I really want to buy in this Natiivo building that is being delivered now in Miami. We have Natiivo Miami now being delivered next week. And they say to somebody, please give me a unit. They're going to say, well, guess what? It's been sold out for 3.5 years. Right? So if you really want a piece of the market, any market it is, you better come in early on as a buyer. That way you get to choose the right unit for you. You get to choose coming at the pricing that makes sense and not 3-4 years later where it could be 30-40% more expensive, right? So that's why pre-sales are thriving, as well as and that's another reason why brokers or realtors are transitioning to selling that product a little bit more, because that's it. That's a product.
Right. Exactly right.
That's what's available.
And I think that whole concept of the flexibility of it is really compelling. I think it's a really strong story for people who have the ability at a price where luxurious affordability, if you want, they can afford it and use it. And then of course when they're not in residence, they're making some sort of return. I wanted to pivot a little bit because as an experienced guy as you are, and with all the successes you've had, can you begin to give us some insight into your vision when you begin and you kind of land on a piece of dirt that you want to develop, whether that's an Natiivo or a condo or a flag, a hotel flag or whatever? How do you begin your thought process in terms of assembling your team, the cast of characters that are going to help you realize your vision? Architects, interior designers, on-site brokers, firms. How do you? I know you've worked with many, many different architects and all different kinds of companies along the way. But how do you begin from, let's say, if something was in downtown Miami versus Fort Lauderdale, how you begin to make these critical decisions?
Yeah, great question. I always say that we developers are almost like conductors. There's a symphony that we want to execute on, and we start putting together basically the best, most appropriate, most available, most talented and components or musicians of that symphony, whether it is the best violinist or pianist and so forth. It's the same thing in real estate, right? So the first rule is, would I be a buyer of that product? Would I go and would I write the check on that particular location for that prototype if I was in that market? If the answer is yes, then we proceed. Then on proceed with that location. Then we say, okay, if in the case of a Natiivo, if it's a Natiivo and it's a Natiivo, say in, let's call it Fort Lauderdale because it's one that we launched a few weeks ago. It has to feel very much what Fort Lauderdale should be in 5-10 years. And that is a combination of where it has been in the past, where it is today, and what we see, our vision of that trajectory to the future. And then with that, we say, okay, who can help us execute that vision the best? Who has that pulse in that market? And in general, we try to bring designers and architects that have experience in those markets, because it helps with the execution of our vision, right? They know the market really well, or they're familiar with it, or they're passionate about that particular market and so forth. And then sales, right? And then we come in and say, who can sell this product and connect with our buyer the best way? And it's a little bit like a symphony. It's a little bit
Casting a movie.
like a theater,
Yeah.
right? Casting a movie, a play.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. It's very, very interesting.
They have to. I would think that all of these critical players that we're talking about have to have their ability, not just in terms of their experience and expertise, but really understanding you and understanding your vision as the guy who is ultimately responsible. I mean, the buck does stop with you, and so how do you from new projects? Do you continue to explore new architects, new interior designers, new sales folks, and all the rest of it? How do you begin to, especially let's say if you go into a new market, Austin, or you went into Orlando, or Long Island? I don't know. I'm making it up. How do you begin to go through that interview process?
Every single day. That's the answer. Every single day, we developers tend to sort of develop this sensitivity to information, right? And information that we're very visual, right? Like, for example, I was in Tampa last Friday looking at a site there for Natiivo, and I was blown away with some of the product that has been recently designed, built, and delivered over there. So I became very curious to understand who designed it, who was the interior designer, who was that architect, who was that engineer, and so forth, because you have to, right? And it's almost like a painter. A painter gets inspiration from another painter.
All derivative musicians. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
All derivative.
So and that process never ends.
Yeah, agreed.
But then you have to be very disciplined. Once you make a decision, that's it.
Yeah,
That's it. And again, you and I have been in projects, right? If you remember, where we said, no, guess what? We want to change things. What?
You lost the script somewhere along the line, but that's understandable because markets they shift, they move, and the idea is to have your antenna up through data, research, discovery to kind of recognize not just like what Rain Gretzky would say. He doesn't skate to where the puck is; he skates to where the puck is going. And developers have to have that degree of antenna up. That because on day one you have a certain point of view. It doesn't mean on day 801 it's going to be the same. The ability to pivot accordingly. I wanted to ask you is not to put you in a box, but Natiivo is such an interesting new model for residences. Do you see this over the next 5 years? Your focus really looking to expand and extend the Natiivo brand to multiple markets? Is that going to be your focus?
100%. Listen, this product is what not only I would like to own everywhere, right? But also we are firm believers that the times of owning assets, especially real estate that you cannot monetize, are over, right? So as you look at every single market, Tampa, Sarasota, Daytona, we're doing a Natiivo, Palm Beach, product doesn't exist. I just came back from Savannah yesterday. We negotiating an incredible piece of land next to the historic district. Doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist.
It's exciting. It's exciting. Really, it is. It's really quite exciting. I mean, because it really opens up a marketplace for you and for buyers that just really has not existed.
Yeah, and you know what we're seeing? Buyers from Austin buy Miami and vice versa, and they bought a Lofty, which is a sister brand, a Natiivo Reserve brand, which is higher end, is more luxurious. Um, and then bought a Natiivo for Lauderdale and so forth, right? Because they love what that real estate will do for them and the flexibility that will create.
So let me begin to wrap this up a little bit and ask you. And look, we're all kind of very very much aware of what it costs to borrow money for development and mortgage rates and labor and raw materials. Everything seems to be, and insurance. My God, it just doesn't seem to want to end. Or looking for a little bit more. Let's call it overall optimism for 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 developments to be able to provide creative housing, affordable. Having all the components that this Florida lifestyle provides. Give us your 3 month, 6 month, 12-month projection as to what do you see happening.
Yeah, I tell you, it's very concerning. It's concerning because what we do has become so hard and so expensive. I mean, every single day we face more challenges today than ever before, right? From availability of materials to availability of people to do the work, qualified workers, to the cost of that qualified worker, which in turns makes construction more expensive. And then municipalities charging more for impact fees and for license fees and permits fees, and then insurance coming in and saying, hey, by the way, we're going to raise your prices 300, 400%, not 30%, 400%, and so forth, right? So unfortunately, the only way of that we have to sort of continue providing the services and providing the product that we build is by passing on those costs into our customers. But until when our customers be able to afford that is the question.
Yes, that's that's hard to answer.
It's right. I can tell you, I remember building and selling product for $500 a foot. Now, nothing makes sense if you don't sell $1,500 a foot. So thank God we still see buyers seeing value in that number, and I think they're right because I don't see the cost coming down. And if the cost doesn't come down, value of that real estate will continue to increase. But the question is until when? What's gonna be that because a healthy environment is where you see costs increasing 3 to 5% a year, right? And hopefully values increase the same rate, right? 5 to 7% a year or so. But that's not what we've seen over the last 5-7 years.
Yeah, correct. It's challenging.
But then you have that side of the question, which, by the way, is affecting many states in the U.S. But in Florida, because of migration trends today, listen, in Tampa, you'll pay for an apartment in Tampa the same rent and price per foot if you want to buy a great condo than Miami today.
That's remarkable.
Go figure.
In Tampa.
Savannah, Georgia, a 2-bedroom apartment costs you brand new $4,000 rent. It's the same price as Miami.
Let me ask you one last question because I'm just curious in terms of all these additional components that go into your pro forma when you're costing out a building, and then therefore over X number of years and borrowing. I mean, fortunately in Florida we have progressive payments, so that helps developers, to a significant degree. Your Natiivo Fort Lauderdale project that you just recently launched. When do you imagine you'll be delivering that?
Yeah, so we're hoping that we start construction Q1 next year, and typically these projects take about 2.5 years to build. So sometime early 27, mid 27 is what we're thinking. So if you think about that, is any project from the moment that you buy, the moment you get it delivered, is 3.5 to 4 years, right? And guess what? If the buyer doesn't buy it today, more than likely they won't be able to find it in 4 years at the same price because cost is increasing. Yeah, I tell you, Nativo Miami, we sold it at an average maybe 875, $900 a foot. If you need to buy today, 3.5 years later, probably cost you $1,300 a foot. So that's 40%, 45%.
No, no, I think that that's part of the story, the narrative for new development sales. That if you buy something today and you may feel like, oh, it's expensive, it's just going to be X times that in 3 or 4 years. There's just no question about it. Harvey, what can I tell you? Thank you so much. I always spending time,
So
whether
much
it's in
fun.
person over a cocktail or like this. Your enthusiasm, your optimism, your vision, they're really special. And as you know, I've worked with just about every primary and secondary, tertiary developer down here for lots of years. And, yours were one of my favorites and
Thank
special.
you.
I can't thank you
You're
enough.
very kind. Thank you. Thank you, Len.
I'll be reaching out to you to next week.